Facebook and YouTube Live. We are so excited to join you this evening with the debut of Race Matters. We will be on every first and third Thursday of the month at 6 p.m. And we want you to join us for this. I can't even say enough about how necessary this dialogue is about race and how race matters and the matters of race in this country and in the world, but specifically in America, since we are sitting in wherever we're sitting with states and towns we're sitting in America right now with everything that's going on in our country. So we gathered here to bring the conversation forward on this platform. Myself and my co-hosts and everyone will introduce themselves shortly. So you can get to know them and get to know us through this conversation. But we want you to join the conversation with us. It's not just about what we have to say. It's about all of us coming together and joining the dialogue to move the agenda forward, to rid ourselves of the racism issue. But some housekeeping things. So we're going to do what I'm about to do. So ladies, do what I'm about to do, what I'm about to share. Share this feed on your Facebook page. If we're on Full Life Communications now, so go to the Full Life Communications page and share the feed. There's a share button at the bottom. And then once you share it, it should go to your own page and you'll be able to, your friends and family, whoever that are friends, I think that's how you say it, on your page will be able to see the broadcast from your page. So, and then after that, you can start a watch party. You can do whatever it is that you would like. Okay, so I am seeing the feed now. Yay. Sometimes I don't do this stuff right because I'm not, see how I had the volume up? I had to just turn it down. So, you know, I have to practice this. Okay, so now it's coming up, copy link. That's a new way, but okay. So if it says copy link, you just go to your page and you, where it says create post or something like that. When it says create post, you just paste it into your post area and it'll come up that way. So easy peasy. Now I have several pages, so I have to post mine on 3 pages. But here we are again with Race Matters. I'm doing double duty, so that's why I sound like I'm okay. I got it pasted. I'll paste it to the other ones after I'm done, but I just want to put it up to that one right now. So if you have any questions or comments for us regarding our topic tonight, which is race in general, as well as we're going to be talking about the how race is relevant in this conversation right now, and our you know, why we struggle with race in this community in America so much, and some of the history of that. And we're going to get into can opinions about race be changed over time? And if we have time, we're going to get into the disinformation and misinformation in media regarding race, and, you know, just generally the disinformation and misinformation that's spread on social media and television, and how that's changing the climate and information, how it's spread in America and around the world. So those are some of our topics tonight that we want you to be able to join with us. So share your comments and questions on the feed, and I'll be able to highlight some of your comments and questions on that lower third where it says Race Matters, so we can get your comments and questions out there, as well as I'll be posting questions for you to answer on the feed. Between shows, like I said, we airing the first and third Thursday of the month. Between shows, you can inbox us or fulllifecommunications@gmail.com. Topics that you want us to discuss that are involving race. Any questions that you might have that you want us to answer. So feel free to share that with us, because again, we want to engage with you on the show, and it's not just about what we have to say. And so as the other ladies will be talking, I'm going to be posting questions and comments as well, playing I don't know, quadruple duty, I think it is. So bear with me when you see my head down. It's because I'm trying to get all the comments. I'm trying to read them. And I have got to switch between different devices because you can't see everything on one device. It's just a lot. And so I need someone to assist me with this part of it so I can just focus on talking in the content, but we'll get there. So my name is Sharon Thomas. I am the president and CEO of Full Life Communications, which is the page that this is broadcast from. It's a media company. And I'm also a licensed professional counselor in the states of Pennsylvania and New Jersey in private practice. So, the kind of counselor, you lay on my couch and tell me your problems. Because when you say therapist, people might think physical therapy, massage therapy. So I just say, lay on my couch and tell me your problems. And people are like, oh, yes, I know. Right. So that's the kind of therapist that I am. And it's my calling. It's not just my job. It is my spiritual calling. It's what God purposed in me to do. And this show, the media shows that I produce is an extension of what it is that I do as a therapist by putting the information out there, encouragement, inspiration, also knowledge, and helping people to understand themselves better. And so we can all heal together. And so I wanted to do this show because it's been on my mind for a long time. The Lord has put it on my heart for a long time to do. And because it's always relevant. But this past year, with everything that we know that has gone on since 2020 with George Floyd's murder, not that that was the first one, it was one of many, but that one seemed to turn a tide somewhat in America. And so this show is just very relevant. And so it took me some time to put hosts together for the show, but I finally did. And I'm so happy with the ladies who have decided to join me. So that is why we are starting now, because finally we've come together and it's relevant all the time. So that's the purpose in a nutshell for this show. And I am going to allow the other hosts to introduce themselves. And so then we will get into the meat of the show after that. So Mariana, how about you introduce yourself?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. My name is Mariana Scottaro, and I am in a similar field as Sharon. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist in the state of Pennsylvania. I met Sharon through a current doctoral program we are both in. We took a class together on diversity, which was very similar to the conversations we're going to have tonight. And we ended up in a group project together and connected throughout the experience quite a bit. So we did a presentation on racism during the Trump era. And from that, just started a few other conversations between a group of us ladies. And, we stayed in touch. So when Sharon invited me to join, I just felt really honored by that, by the fact that she considered me for this. So that was a big and very important decision for me to join this. I'm excited for this opportunity because I'm as a therapist, a very strong believer in important conversations, right? Everything we do revolves around conversations through our job. And I'm excited that this will be an opportunity where survivors of oppression will find a safe space. But my hope is that this will also be an opportunity for some of us who have some level of privilege, right, to learn and to educate ourselves how we can use some of that voice to create more space for others as well. But I was born and raised, as indicative by my accent, in Republic of Moldova, which is a small country in the east of Europe. Moldova is located between Romania and Ukraine. So my first language is actually Romanian, given that Moldova used to be part of Romania at some point. We were removed and are separated now and have been for many years back and forth because of Russia. And so the language that I speak now, Romanian, is quite mixed with Russian because of the heavy influence and oppression through that. But that experience, as well as moving into the United States and my career as a counselor, has given me both like this sad experience, but also the privilege of working with survivors and seeing the impact of systemic oppression. So I'm excited to be part of this conversation.
All right, Rosie.
Okay, hi guys. My name is Rosie. Born here in the United States. I grew up in Camden. My ethnicity, I'm half Puerto Rican and half Black, and I think like my friend here, I am excited that Sharon would afford me the opportunity to join her, because it surprised me when she asked me. Um, I'm a retired utility worker. I worked for a utility company for over 26 years, and I retired from there. So I'm somebody who sits at home and relaxes now. After working outside for 26 years, I want to stay from the outside. I want to be inside, because on them cold days, I don't regret no longer working outside. And I think what I most love about joining the team is I think it's a desire of mine to help people stop being so quick to judge each other because of their different beliefs, dealing with, and especially dealing with race, because I think they have a really big, we have a really big problem with people separating ethnicity from race. And I think once we start talking about it on the show and really sharing, we'll understand that we are all of the same race. We're all of the human race, and we should not convolute that with ethnicity and why we don't like each other, because we're not the same. We are exactly the same, just different shades of the same. So I'm hoping that with this show that we can help people to be able to communicate and accept each other for who they are and not who they want them to be. So that's what my desire is. And I want to just drop it in, but as I'm retired, I used to do share ride before COVID. I haven't done it since COVID because I don't want to get sick or get anybody sick. But the reason I feel led to join them is because for so many years that I was doing share ride, people kept saying, "Are you a counselor? You need to counsel people," because believe it or not, you get a lot of people that are going through issues in life, and sometimes they get in the share ride card and they just are sad or just ask you questions, and then when I share with them, they're like, "Oh my God, I'm so glad I talked to you. I feel better." And so I think it just would be a lovely conversation to have with people, So back to you, Miss Sharon.
Take it away, Stephanie.
Hi, guys. I'm Stephanie Esposito. I was born here in the States, but I am of Italian descent, both sides, thoroughbred, which I like to always say to my friends. But no, I love everyone, and it doesn't matter, what you're combined of. But I also am very excited to be here, Sharon. I thank you for asking me to be part of this. I was excited when you asked, even though I was a little bit nervous, but I thought this is a great opportunity because there are racial issues, and the fact that you want to further the conversation. I would like to be part of that and part of raising voices and bringing people together. I feel like my skill set and experience maybe can do something good. I worked in media my whole life. I've had 2 careers. I've worked in advertising and I was doing TV producing. So I thought maybe that could bring a certain perspective to the table, as well as maybe there are some tools for communication that can help in discussing these issues. And in addition to that, my father has also always been a very civic-minded person. He's not alive anymore, but he did give my family an outlook to help communities. And I'd like to sort of maybe take that on a little bit. I'm very proud of what he did. And lastly, I did have the opportunity to go to school, grade school through high school, with a lovely group of Black girls, very dynamic, spicy, passionate girls. Sharon, as you know.
I was one of them.
You were one of them. And I'm lucky to have some nice, lovely friends from grade school and high school. And to that end, having, great girlfriends like that just has inspired me to maybe want to offer some support.
Awesome. Thank you, ladies. And I neglected to mention my ethnicity. I'm so used to doing these shows and think people like already know who I am, but that's not true. So my heritage is African American. I mean, there's some other things, in there, but I'm not going to go into that. But so I'm African American. And so I think that we have come together, the four of us, with the different ethnic backgrounds that we have, come together to create a great conversation, because we don't all come from the same ethnic experience. So we have a lot of cultural things that we can share and learn from one another. And even though, I say we're having the hard conversation, some of the conversations aren't hard, but some of them will be, just because race is just such a sensitive and emotional and powerful, and so many other words, issue, because of the history of race in America. But we do everything, the four of us, as we are believers in Jesus Christ, we do everything in love. And so even when we have the hard conversations, we're having the hard conversations in love, because we put no one down. We're not going to be disparaging. Everyone has their own walk. We don't have to agree. So we do everything in love so we can learn from one another. And so with that being said, we want to thank you for joining us and learning a little bit about us today. And now I'm going to turn it over to Rosie to give us the word of the day.
Okay, thank you, Sharon, for bringing me back on. I thought it was really important to, since the show is called Race Matters, to let the word of the day be race, because that's the key of what we're doing the show for, to try and help each other understand the differences in race. So when you look in, there are so many definitions of race. So to just say I'm going to pull up race and give the definitions, I don't have a whole day to be able to do that. So I just did pick out something from, and as Sharon said, I'll be looking down because we're using certain devices and things to read off of. But in the Merriam-Webster dictionary, it gives race, the definition of race, as a group of people who come from the same ancestry. Another definition is a group of people having common language, culture, and body of tradition. Now we look at race in there, but when we break it down, because as Sharon said, we're Christians, and if anybody who believes that God created man, then we have to understand that the human race is a creation of God. And if you look in Genesis, in the King James Version, Genesis 5:1, it says, "This is the book of the generations of Adam." Now, of course, Christians believe all mankind evolved from Adam. So that tells you right there is only one race. And then it says, "In the day that God created man, in the likeness of God made he him," saying that God created man in his own image. So that's why I thought the word race needed to be the word of the day, because we have to understand that if we claim to be people who love God, then we have to understand where race comes from. And it came from God. He created the human race. So what we really have a problem with is not race, but ethnicity. And if we deal with that, then we will deal with a big problem. We will probably squash a big problem on saying you're a different race, you're a different race. Because if you take the flesh off of us, we're all identical. So that's what I wanted to share for the word of the day. Back to you, Sharon.
Thank you, Rosie, for that concise definition and the scripture that you had go along with it. Thank you so very much. So we're going to get into the topic of the day, but before I do that, again, this is Full Life. This is Race Matters on Full Life Communication, broadcasting on Facebook and YouTube Live. Please share the feed if you're watching. Just click the share button or copy link button and share it to, or copy the link to your page so your friends and family can watch the broadcast now or at their leisure. Post any questions or comments on the feed as we go throughout the show, as I will also post some things up on the lower third so you can see what questions we're highlighting or comments we're highlighting. And I will highlight your comments and questions as well. So, but if you, when you log on, please say hello so I can know that you're watching. Otherwise, I won't know that you're watching. And we want to shout you out. And thank you for watching our show with us. So, our first topic, we've already gotten into some of it, talking about the relevance of race I think race is always relevant, but specifically in this time that we're living in because of things that we know that have happened in our body of politics and social justice issues around the country with police brutality and the rise of Black Lives Matter and the rise of white nationalism and things of that nature. And so race has become more a part of our conversation. Not saying it's always been a good conversation, but it's become a part of the conversation just because of what's been happening in our country. So we've come together to bring that conversation to you in a loving way, and in a way that we hope advances the conversation and advances our communities, because we don't just want to talk, we want to also try to bring solutions or bring some sort of activism and things that we can begin to do differently in order for us not to stay the same, that we're just constantly just talking, but nothing is getting resolved. We know that this has been a longstanding issue since the inception of what was named America, and it will be here forever. But I do think we can make strides, because we have made some strides, but we have a long way to go. So we're hoping that our show can be a part of making some of those strides in America and abroad, because we're on social media, so it's international. So let's have a conversation about the relevance, what you all think is the relevance, and what's the struggle that we have as Americans or in America with just even discussing race. I mean, we know that there's a racial issue, but we have a hard time discussing it. I think one of the biggest issues, the reasons that we have to not discuss it, is because we're so emotional about it. It's such a sensitive topic. And I think for white people, oftentimes are afraid to talk about race with Black people because they think they might offend Black people. And of course, this is not all. This has just been my experience and what some white people have told me, because I talk to people about these issues, and I can see how that would be an issue, because a lot of times Black people are offended when white people say certain things. And so it's like, how does a white person have a conversation with a Black person about race? Right? It's tricky. Like, I don't want to be offensive, but I don't really know how to say this, but I know my experience, and we're all kind of fumbling over one another, I think, sometimes. And so that then it's just like, you know what, this is just too much. Let me just forget it. And then we just never move on and get to the place where we become more comfortable doing it, because we just get frustrated and we give up. So this, one of the things I think is great about this show is we're not going to give up. We're going to have the hard conversation, and even in our frustration, we're going to try and move past that to further the conversation, because that's the only way we will get to a better place, is if we begin to become comfortable with the uncomfortable, which is something that we say in the counseling world. So it might not be easy, and it might not always be pretty, but it's necessary. So we want to begin to become comfortable with the uncomfortable conversation. And so if we can do it, we're hoping that you can do it with us. So that's some of the reasons why I think we struggle in America with having the conversation of race. What do you guys think?
Yes, I do. I think that's a great point, Sharon. People are afraid to speak for a few reasons. One of them being they're afraid to offend, and they're also afraid of being offended. And I say that about white people too. Like, I know they're afraid of saying the wrong thing. So even if they have questions, they're afraid to ask. And also some of the terminology being thrown around, white privilege, etc., they're offended by some of it, but are afraid to say it. So that's what I think as well. So you're right. These are hard conversations. And I think stripping some of that away so that neither person has fear can get some conversations going.
Right. I agree. It's a both sides.
Well, a little bit.
What do you guys think?
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I agree.
I
think. Go ahead.
There's a delay, ladies and gentlemen. So sometimes if we get crosstalk, it's because, it's just technology. There's a delay. Mariana, why don't you go first? And then Rosie.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
So both of you are highlighting, I think, an important thing, right? The role of fear and conversations, right? And one thing we see a lot with many difficult conversations, Sharon, right, as mental health professionals, is that once we know that a conversation is not easy, and we may have attempted to have a conversation and it didn't go as we expected, the tendency is to pull back and say, like, I'm expecting this to fail again. And in reality, like, one thing that, I like to tell the people that I work with quite a bit is, the first conversation doesn't have to go well, right? We have opportunities to go back and share, last time I reacted from an emotional experience because I felt threatened in that moment, right? I was scared and I felt like you were coming at me in an attacking way. But now that I had some time to sit with that, I can approach this conversation again. But we're afraid to do that. We're afraid that we'll fail again. I think when people are hurt, they want to be heard. They want to let the other person know, this is what your actions have done for me. But many times the person receiving that doesn't want to hear that. So I think a lot of white people, we don't want to hear that our actions have hurt someone, right? So it's easier to say, like, this happened in the past, right? This was an issue with slavery or with segregation. We no longer have that issue anymore, and I haven't done anything. Where I'm poor and I'm struggling myself as a white person. I don't see white privilege. But underneath a lot of that, there's a lot of emotions. So we approach that.
Right. And just quickly to interject, I think a lot of people also don't think it's a problem. Like it's okay. Just like you said, Mariana, hey, that was the past. Slavery's over. We celebrate Martin Luther King. Like they think it's been taken care of. So I think there's a little bit of that too.
I agree. I definitely agree.
What, Rosie? Yeah.
Not to mention that we had a Black president. So a lot of people don't just because
right.
Just because there's no slavery anymore. Because people
right.
quote unquote picking cotton anymore. That mentality has not gone away. And that's why we have to deal with this sensitive subject, because especially in the past 4 to 5 years, we have seen, and even longer than that, but we have seen the brazenness of people who are so afraid of other, and I'm going to say it like this, other ethnicities becoming equal to them, that they feel I'm being erased. And they don't see the benefit of all of us working together. So they get afraid and they get panicky, and then they start to attack other ethnicities and say, go back to your country. Well, this ain't your country. So how can I go back? I used to tell people when they say go back to your country, I said after you, because the whole attitude of going back to your country, it just doesn't make sense. We made this country, all of us, and if you look on the history, on the backs of slaves, most of the country was made anyway. We did a lot of building. So we need to learn how to, as you ladies said, find a way of discussing why our ethnicity is just important as yours without offending you. But at the same time, you need to get that chip off your shoulder and stop always being offended just because I say I want to get paid the same amount as you, or I'm better than you. Why didn't I? So we've got to find a way to be able to discuss these things, and we have to understand each other. We have a lack of understanding, and that's the biggest problem. That sensitivity, that the caring, the compassion, that's what I'm looking for. We have to be able to discuss these things with a sense of compassion and say, I'm talking to you, but I feel your pain too. So if we can start having these open discussions with compassion and feel the weight of the other person, then we'll be able to listen better, That's how I feel.
Good point,
Yeah,
Rosie. And
yeah.
Stephanie, were you going to say
Sharon?
something?
No, I was just going to say, I agree. There's a lack of listening and a lack of empathy for other people's experiences.
Yes, absolutely. And it seems like, and this is not for everybody, but if it's not happening to me and mine, then I don't really care.
Not
You
really.
know, but because we live in this country together, we're only as strong as our weakest link, as they say. So if I hurt, you hurt. If you hurt, I hurt. Because because it hasn't come to your doorstep yet, it may.
Right.
And you're going to want someone to come alongside and support you through that. So when I see my brother or my sister hurting, I need to come alongside them and help pick up the mantle with them, because we're all in it together, and then we can move further together.
Right.
Than we can apart.
And I think, not to bring this in right now, but just on a small level, the coronavirus alone tells the world how important unifying is, because now we have a global problem. We have the same objective and goal, and we can't even get it together in our own country, let alone globally to work together. But that's what it's telling us. It's imperative.
I agree. We can't even come together when wearing a mask, a piece of cloth.
Right.
Right.
And then
Rosie, were you going to say something?
Well, I was going to say that something you said when you said, when I hurt, you hurt, or when you hurt, I hurt. And, the sad part is we're in a state where a lot of people have gone through so much. I'm going to call it PTSD, because we've gone through so much that a lot of people, whether they believe it or not, the reason they're so angry is they're dealing with PTSD. They went through some kind of post-traumatic situation in their life. And when they hurt, they hurt. When they hurt, instead of trying to get help, they hurt other people, because we're in a situation where I'm going to get you before you hurt me, so they're hurting. So instead of trying to deal with their hurt, they choose to hurt other people, instead of saying, when you're in pain, I feel your pain. But instead they say, I'm in pain, so I'm going to put you in pain. I'm going to make you feel as bad as I feel. And that's something that needs, hey, people, we need to deal with counseling. People need to be counseled. We need help. And don't be afraid to ask help. Help doesn't mean there's something. Help doesn't mean that you're deficient. It just means I have an issue that I can't figure out, and there's somebody out there that's got the training to help me through this thing. So
my mom would have said, misery loves company.
Yeah. And we see this quite a bit, this level too of if I suffered and I didn't get the help that I needed when I went through that, why should someone else get it?
Right.
Yeah.
Like I didn't.
Yeah, because even when I'm trying to have conversations with some people, not with everyone, that sometimes there's a bitterness that comes out, like, hey, I had to struggle, I had to and they think that's a good enough reason not to think about another community or person's plight. But back to what you said, Sharon, we're, you hurt, I hurt. Even if you don't believe it from your heart, mentally, it's a fact too.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, but we struggle with feeling insignificant, right? So
yeah, right.
We grab whatever we think will give us some level of significance.
You struggle with what?
Significance. So if we, then we want to, make ourselves feel superior to someone else. If that helps us, even if it is temporarily, to feel somewhat better, people, gravitate toward that.
And that's a typical, bully, right? Because I am feeling somewhat insecure in myself. I'm going to point the finger at you, so no one looks at me because I'm hurting. And hurt people hurt people.
Right.
And so we're trying to turn that around. we're all hurting on some level with something, and some things plural, because we're broken people. We're born broken people. None of us are perfect. We're broken and we're flawed, so we're all hurting.
And you know, that's so scary.
Say it again, Rosie.
And that's so scary. That's so scary because you have a lot of hurt people raising children, and not only hurting them because of what they went through, but then again also telling them, don't show your weakness, be strong. So they never learn how to be able to deal with hurts and pains, and learn the compassion needed to deal with other people that are in pain or that are hurt. So you have generations of people who have been told not to show your weakness, and to show that you're strong, and to fight, always fight, 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 fight. And then you get a group of people that grow up and all they want to do is fight, because they were taught not to show their pain, and not to show their hate, and not to tell somebody, listen, you just hurt my feelings. Listen, don't tell me how to be Black. You're not Black. You know, I'm not trying to be offensive to you, but you're not Black. So stop trying to tell me what Black people need to do, because you'll never see me come up, and even though some people might, and tell you how to be white, or how to be Italian, or wherever you come from, how to be that ethnicity. So there's a lot of work to be done, and people need to have that sensitivity on how to not go and tell people, oh, y'all are, oh, there you go, pulling the race card again. Well, guess what? If it's the truth, it's the truth. If I'm being attacked because I'm Black, if I'm being arrested when another person did a whole lot worse than me, and you let them walk free, and I'm being arrested just by jaywalking, yeah, I need to pull out that race card, because that's what's happening here. So don't get mad at me. Let's talk about it.
Exactly. And we have a comment from Fruitful You, something that we said earlier. Fruitful You says, so true, Sharon. And sometimes it's hard for Black people to talk to each other about race. And it is. We have the intra issues, and then we have the inter issues, you know, of each race. And I'm not sure if Stephanie or Mariana, within your own different, you know, ethnicities, do you guys, like, do Italians struggle to talk about, you know, ethnic issues amongst themselves, about yourselves? It happens in the Black community. Does it happen in your community?
No, not at all.
Not in mine. And in fact, that's what I wanted to ask you to expand on that. That's news to me. What would your disagreement be about?
Well,
well, to talk about when Sharon's talking about that. So what I've experienced is, and I think it now, for us, in my opinion, it's just my opinion, I think it comes from slavery on till now, because you were taught that, not me taught that, but back in slavery time, the darker you are, you stayed outside, the lighter ones can work in the house. So that caused a lot of slaves to have problems with other slaves, you know. And then you have those the slave owners would have children by the slave, and the darker the child, they did slave work. But if they were almost look white, then they were accepted into the family as the children, and they were even in some situations caused to treat their own mothers harshly, because they didn't see their mother as their mother, but they saw their mother as a slave. So there are generations of taughtness from the institution of this country, that the darker you are, the less valued you are, the lighter. And when you teach people that, then it's like a sickness. It gets into the root of them. So then, even though those people are no longer in slavery, that mentality has not left. There is still her hair is nicer than mine. She got nappy hair. She's too dark. Where she get them eyes? So it's a learned thing that started, you know, a long time ago.
Yeah,
absolutely.
and we see it to this day, right? You know, I think the past few years there was a few very vocal voices that I can think of where, many, Republicans, right, have like used those voices to say like, see, there's just many, people of color who agree with us, therefore, this issue is not real. It really has just been another level, right, of
Right.
yeah. But
Right.
I absolutely have experienced that too. I was kidding. Yeah, both like when it comes to like my immigrant community and how we see racism there, as well as within us, right? I was briefly sharing about Moldova having been part of Romania, and then we also had large populations of gypsies, both in Moldova and Romania, and the treatment there, is very similar. And even so, for us, like skin was also something that came up. But oftentimes, even like the hair color, right? The eye color and all of those things were things that were used when assigning value to people. And some people will call that into question, but those also levels of denying. And I see that a lot in my immigrant community, right? Because yes, we are immigrants, but we are, we have white skin. And some of us have joined in the conversation with our fellow immigrants of color, whereas others very much deny that this is an issue here in this country.
Wow.
Yeah.
The only thing I can say Italians would judge another Italian on is if they don't serve good food.
Okay.
And that's about it. But
Okay.
I understand what you're saying, because now it's bringing to mind other stories I heard, but I never really thought about it in that context. That attitude would have carried through.
And
So, I have heard, and this is just what I've heard.
Right.
So correct me if I'm wrong, or if you know, in Italy itself, because Sicilians are from the southern Italy, and so they're darker, that they may be looked down upon more so maybe than the northern Italians who are lighter, and so that whole light skin, dark skin
Right.
thing is out. Is that true?
I would say that would play a little bit over in Europe, but there's a lot of other factors. Like the Sicilians don't even consider themselves Italians; they're Sicilians. Because it was like they were considered separate. They've got all past empire issues. There's like regions that they fought as regions, and because they all conquered each other. I'm sure they felt those things. And use those weaknesses. That would be a similarity, yes, to maybe target them. But maybe here, the Italians that came in general, probably banded together more. They didn't speak English. And I know as we talk about different topics, they weren't received by everybody right away too. Every immigrant that comes in has to make their way. So maybe that's one reason that didn't come between us. But it's interesting. Yeah, I've heard it in other scenarios.
Okay.
And Sharon, if you see on there, Fruitful You said yes, talked about how another thing she said, and I think it's really important when she talked about, a lot of Black people don't know their history, because all we know is our African American history.
Right.
And, if you don't know who you are and where you come from, then you're limited in how to battle somebody that wants to call you out on your ethnicity. You will hear me avoid the word race when I talk about people, because again, I have a problem with people saying race when we're all the human race, and we're actually dealing with ethnicities and where you come from. And because we have so many years of, so many generations that are born here in America. That's why we say we shouldn't say African American. We should say American. You don't need to know that. I've never been to Africa. Don't know anybody. Well, I do know a couple Africans, but that they don't come from where I come from. So, you know, if I was going to call myself right, I might have to say Puerto Rican American, and that's not even a right word because my father was from Puerto Rico. So you are who a lot of times I think from biblical days, you really identify with your father's side of your race, but you know it's so much that we have to learn about ourselves, and that's why the battle, especially for Black people in America, is so difficult because there is a lack of understanding of who we are, where we come from, or you know where we originate from, and to study it. And a month of Black history does not depict Black history because I'm Black 365 days of the year. I'm not Black just for February, because come March you'll still know I'm Black. So so that's another thing we have to deal with. We have to deal with the fact that we're Black all of our lives. So
all of our lives, exactly. So
well, it's like,
go ahead, Stephanie.
no, I was just even going to say, growing up, it's true. It sounds like maybe there's more being communicated in schools now, but not much more. I don't know. But when we grew up, Sharon, you know what? Well, we were told about slavery ended in this year. Martin Luther King fought for civil rights. I mean, it was very basic. And in fact, I remember when Roots, thank God for Mrs. Pavarou, Roots premiered. At least it was a class discussion, you know, and we talked. And she was a great teacher to do that with us. Some did, but that was part of our, you know, we didn't have books about it. So at least we watched a show and we talked about it in school the next day. But that's as much as we had to learn about that.
well,
Yeah, you know, and the
let me tell you something now. She mentioned Roots, and I just got to drop this in. But you mentioned Roots, and you said, you know, that's how y'all learned about the slavery and stuff like that. And trust me, when Roots came on for me, I ain't saying for everybody else, that meant I'm about to go punch somebody in the face at my job, because and you know, I had to come to terms with that, because for me it made me angry to see what our ancestors had to go through just to be a part of this country. And we didn't even, you know, Africans didn't even ask to come. So for me, when we saw Roots, the people at my job was like, was Roots on this week? Because you coming in here wanting to hurt people. I was like, just don't talk to me. So
yeah,
well, I mean, I can understand, but it's time. We needed to see it, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And like Rosie was saying, what you was saying, you know, because Black people, Africans were brought over here and then created African Americans, we don't know our history, you know, and so that becomes a problem. Like, you know, other ethnicities, you know, Italians, whatever, you know, your history. Right? Because, you know, you guys immigrated here on your own and brought your culture with you and your customs and everything. And we had to create something here out of what? So it's really, we created an American culture, you know, based on our experience here. And, you know, it's just difficult. It's just been difficult. So then those of us over the years have gone back and found out some information and brought it over here. And this is what our ancestors were like. And this is how we did this. And this is how we did that. Or where we're piecemealing it together. And, you know, it just has affected us with who we are, with our identity. Right. We struggle with our identities as African Americans because our identity was stripped from us, you know, so, you know, and we still struggle with that in many ways. And that's part of some of the intra fighting that we have within ourselves, within our community, because of, if I'm a certain way, well, why are you that way? When we can all be whatever way we want to be and still be okay. But that whole divide and conquer happened during slavery and continued on throughout our present day of, again, light-skinned people are better than dark-skinned people because it's closer to white. And if you have straight hair, it's better than curly hair because it's closer to white. And Black people still struggle with these issues today and many more. Those are just the two, you know, obvious ones. And just, you know, you sound white because you speak, can it just be because I just have this type of speaking because maybe I went to this type of school and you didn't, or hung around this group of people? Why does it?
Right.
Why do I have to sound like a certain ethnicity? It's just a whole. I mean, with all this stuff, growing up, and
Right.
we struggle to accept ourselves because we were never accepted, and so we carry that on. It's learned behavior,
Right.
So I don't think it's done. Obviously, as long as we have breath in our body, we can change it. But we have to allow our minds to grow to another level to be able to say, I am willing to open my mind up to see that it's okay that you're different from me, even though your skin color might be the same. Or even when your skin color is different, it's okay. We can coexist in the same country, in the same neighborhood, in the same community, maybe even the same house.
Right.
Our differences, as my bishop always says, in our differences, we produce. If we're the same, then we can't be productive. I don't need you to be the same as me. I need you to be different. So we put our differences together, we produce something great.
Right.
But if we're constantly fighting over our differences, then we're missing the beauty of our differences.
Right. Because we should be finding commonalities and celebrating our differences.
Yeah.
Right. And there's something extremely beautiful about differences, right?
Right.
That's one thing that in the United States, there's a few other countries only that has that much, and there's still so much to learn about a lot of different cultures and celebrate traditions and music and food, right? These are things that we can really appreciate from one another.
Right.
Yes. And let me just say this, ladies, when this COVID thing is over and we can go to the studio and do the show, we are going to bring some ethnic food from each of our ethnicities, right? And we're going to eat our different food and share and have a feast while we talk about our conversation and share. That's for later because we're in COVID season, but that's what's one of the things that we're going to do. So Rosie and I talked about that a while ago last year when she helped me with one of the diversity assignments I had to do. I had to interview her and we talked about doing that. And now, Rosie, look, the show has come together and we're on that path. So, but I'm highlighted Chad's comment.
No, that's
I'm
my
sorry.
friend. That's my friend.
Oh, is it? Okay, so Chad says, have any of you done DNA tests and been surprised by the results? If so, did it change how you felt about yourself? So let me just start. I've never had a DNA test. And let me just tell you one of the reasons why. Because if I take a DNA test, just think about it, I have to send it out to a lab. I am skeptical about what they were going to do with my blood or whatever they take because of the history of African Americans being experimented on in this country, not to our knowing. I don't know. I just said, if you take my D, something's going to occur. This is my own paranoia. You know what I mean? That, okay, down the line. Oh, this is Sharon's DNA. She must have committed this crime. What? You know what I'm saying? So no, you can't have any parts of my DNA. You can't have any parts of me that I don't know about willingly. No, I'm not doing any of that. So it could come up later and have some harm to me. Now, my family has done research, if you will, on our different, ethnic heritage. So, we got Native American, Arab, African American, and a few others, in our makeup. Now, have I had actually a DNA test? No, but I do know what I find interesting is a lot of people that, I've seen, with the documentary where white people have gotten their DNA and thinking that they're of a pure race, and they found out that they've got like black in them somewhere, and they're freaking out like, oh my God, I've got African this and I've got this. And so, most of us are, not totally pure. And so it's just interesting. So that's my answer, Chad. What do you guys think about Chad's question?
Well, to me, I did do one, and it was a while ago, but I had so many different ethnicities on there. I was like, well, I am truly American. I am e pluribus unum to the max. And, but, like you said, it's like for us, like you said, Sharon, we might like certain ethnicities might go, oh, I got this is wrong. I ain't got that in me. Whereas with us, we're like, oh, really? I got that. I'm part of that. What? I need to go around and get a couple different,
Right.
get go to all these other countries and tell them I'm a part of y'all. I'm a part of y'all. Y'all got to put me in your directory or something. But yeah, it's like I had so many slices. I was like, okay, what am I? I'm American.
Right.
It's
Right. How about you guys, Stephanie or Mariana? Have you had a DNA test?
I did.
Go ahead, Mariana.
And the interesting thing for me was that so I got an initial result, and then later on they sent me an email telling me that it's more updated. So I'm actually not that interesting. The first one, like I knew there was a bit of Jewish, but there was a lot less than we anticipated. And the first time he said that I was like 9% British, which I didn't know about. So I asked some questions around. Nobody knew why the number is so high. However, the second time when they sent a more concrete one, and it was based on the same test, I think they just had more information, right? As more time passed, it was basically Eastern European, and they covered the region that included and Romania, Hungary, Bulgaria. So yeah, nothing too fascinating.
Well, let me just say first, I'm laughing that Chad asked that question because he's one of my best friends. We worked together in New York for years, and we think alike. I was going to ask you that question, Sharon and Rosie, since you were talking about your Black history, because I was curious, like, well, and that is fascinating that you say that to me, Sharon. I'm still shocked. I understand where you're coming from, but I'm always shocked when I hear things like that. I'm like, wow, that you have to think that way. I'm just so that's another topic. I have some other comments on that, but just quickly, I did do my DNA. I did my aunt's DNA, and mine came back mostly Italian. Then we had some Eastern Europe in there a little bit, 10%. But my aunt's came back. This is kind of humorous to your point, Sharon and Rosie, where it was like 2% or something in an area that would be Arab, maybe. All the geography. So once I think they heard that they might be Arab. I don't know. They didn't ask anymore. They were like, oh, everybody thinks they're like, totally pure, whatever.
Right.
It doesn't matter. Right. We all come from with the same seed, and it's really superficial,
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Right.
But I think in mine, and many people have like, a percent or less sometimes, somewhere in like African region, which I think actually shows, right, that like at some point many of us have migrated from that part of the world and expanded, right?
Right.
And then our skin color may have adjusted to the climate where we ended up, but a lot of us have roots close to the same part of the world.
Right. Well, and one last question on it, like, for instance, Sharon, since you said you looked up some of your history, how did you go about doing that? And is there anything
I did it, my mom and her siblings and, people who attended the family reunion. So I got it from them. To be honest, I don't know how they did it. I know that they asked other generations, like the grandmoms, the great grandmoms, and so on and so forth. So I know they got a lot of information from that, but I do believe somebody dug up information by research as well. They got DNA, I don't know. But I know they went really far back. We have the Moors in our history. So yeah, they went really far back.
Wow, fascinating.
Yes. So ladies, guess what? It's 6:59. Right? We got to the first topic.
Yep.
But that's okay because it was a great conversation. So we just always have more in the can for next time. So, ladies and gentlemen, we thank you so very much for watching our show this evening. This was the debut of Race Matters, and we are on the first and third Thursday of each month. So the next show will be March the 18th, which is a Thursday at 6 p.m. So please stay tuned and join us then. Please like or follow rather the Full Life Communications page on Facebook and on YouTube. We're simulcasting right now on Facebook and YouTube on the Full Life Communications page. That's the media page. So if you could go to that page and like it and follow it, this way when we're broadcasting, you'll get a notification and you'll know when we're on. And so next time we're going to be talking about what we didn't get to today, which was can opinions about race change over time? Because we're seeing some of that happen now with this cancel culture and things of that nature, and more about race relations in America and the climate that we're in. And Stephanie's going to lead us in a conversation about disinformation and misinformation and how that is affecting our country, what it's all about, the reason for it, and what it could lead to, as well as the implication for the different races. Because if you all know, a lot of misinformation and disinformation is pointed towards certain ethnicities, so it can affect voting and things of that nature. So we're going to get into that discussion. That discussion can take us many weeks, be a part of a lot of weeks, because we're in the thick of it right now, and there's great implications for misinformation and disinformation in media. And so you really need to stay tuned for that, because if you look at, and not to get into it to take up your topic, Stephanie, but I just want to throw this out at people. If you look at some of the authoritarian leaders in our history and how they came to be in power, some of those things are happening right now in America, and it's scary. But a lot of people don't understand that that's how it happened. We think, oh, no, this is just how it is. This will pass, whatever. No, this is a thing. This is a real thing that's happening. So Stephanie's going to lead us in that conversation next week, so we can be armed with information and be prepared, so we know what to do, doing our part not to spread misinformation, and to notice how to recognize misinformation and disinformation. So we thank you for joining us this evening, ladies. Rosie, Stephanie, Mariana, thank you so much for joining me on this show. I so appreciate you volunteering and getting up under the vision that God gave me for this show. I appreciate you ladies so much. And I'm going to leave us with this scripture, which is Job 28:28, which says, "And he said to the human race, the fear of the Lord, that is wisdom, and to shun evil is understanding." Racism is evil and we need to shun it. That wasn't the Bible part. That was me. Racism is evil and we need to shun it. Thank you so much. We're signing off. We love you. God bless you. Shalom.
Good night. Thank you.